Hello and welcome back to Whiskey Wars. Tonight we're going to be having our third Whiskey War, and this time it will be a wheated bourbon whiskey war, with the exception of we do have one wheat whiskey in the mix. So let's get all these poured and see which one comes out on top. Okay, so here's our lineup for tonight. We have Weller Special Reserve, Maker's Mark, Larceny, Rebel 100, I keep saying the old name, and then Woodford Wheat, or actually Woodford Straight Wheat Whiskey. And yes, that's a cricket. I cannot find it, but it will die very soon. So Weller is definitely the favorite for most folks in this lineup, and Weller and Maker's Mark are certainly the two most well-known of the wheated bourbons. But let's see, once we get these things poured, who actually will win this blind whiskey war. So I'll get all these poured and we'll be right back. All right, so my wife actually poured these for me, but just to make sure I have no idea what's what, we're going to spin them on the spinner mixer upper. So here we go, round and round we go. Nobody knows what's what. The cricket's still chirping. He doesn't know though. He doesn't know what's in what glass. All right, we're thoroughly mixed up now. Let's get them set out. All right, so here are our glasses. They're all poured, they're all mixed up. I have no idea what's what. But I want to address one thing before someone in the comments does. Yes, two of these glasses are not like the others. Now these are two glasses I actually found at a local thrift store that I'm very proud of. They're very similar to a Libby's glass. I love drinking out of them. I actually think they're superior to the Glen. I know that's sacrilege, but anyway, I didn't have 5 Glens, and I wanted to do these 5 whiskeys, so this is what we're doing. I don't think it'll really change the results at all. I think once it's in your mouth, I don't think the glass can really affect it at all. So the only thing it can possibly affect is maybe the nose, but that's not really how these will be judged on. So let's go ahead and nose our first whiskey here. Getting lots of oak, maybe some cherry, certainly like a toasted bread note in there, some pepper, some spice. Fairly nice nose. Let's move on to our second glass. All right, some cinnamon, cherry, hints of oak, maybe a little sour oak. Nose is fairly light. I think I might know what this is just based on the nose. Hard to say though yet. Anyway, a nice nose, but lighter than the first glass. Let's move on to glass 2. Let's move on to glass 3. Certainly has a lot of wood and very strong cherry, a really sweet cherry. Almost like a bubblegum note. Kind of like an artisan sweet bread, maybe. Again, I think I might know what that is as well. Let's move on to our fifth. I cannot get my numbers right tonight. Let's move on to our fourth glass. This nose is pretty light. Cinnamon and oak, and like charred barrel note is not like a sour oak, but lots of charred barrel notes in there. It's kind of like burnt wood. Cinnamon, light cherry, a little pepper, and almost like a licorice in there. It's strange, I don't recall that in any of these, but let's move on to our fifth glass. All right, nice barrel presence. This is almost like the oak you would smell in like a smoker, burning oak note. Definitely some pepper, almost like a chocolatey note, like a light dark chocolate note in there. And this almost has more of a bourbon nose than a wheated bourbon. All in all, nice nose. Let's give our first glass a sip here. So all in all, a decent sip. A lot of sourness in there though, like a lot of kind of citrusy punch, like lemon and orange, and maybe some sour oak as well. And then also you're getting kind of some spice from the barrel. Not really picking up a whole lot of the wheated notes that you would typically expect. Maybe some slight like hay notes in there, but all in all, it tastes kind of young and kind of cheap, honestly. I'm not sure what that is at this point, but not my favorite. Now that was my first sip of the day, so maybe it'll grow on me as we cycle back through these. We'll see. Let's move on to glass number 2 after we do a rinse out of the mouth. Glass 2. Okay, so like the nose, unfortunately the palate's also fairly light. You do get some cherry note and some cinnamon in there, maybe some light sourness from the barrel, and then just hints of maybe like a white pepper on the finish, and then also some cinnamon spice. Not bad, just kind of neutral on that one. It's just not a whole lot going on in that glass. Let's move on to our third glass here after we rinse the palate again. Okay, glass number 3. All right, well, as glass number 2 was kind of boring, glass number 3 has a ton of flavor going on. Lots of cherry, lots of cinnamon going on, lots of barrel presence, like a nice toasted oak, getting some peppery notes in there as well. Of course, your hints of caramel and brown sugar in there. All in all, a really nice sip. It is really sweet, which I don't like a bourbon super sweet, but this is still nice. But just one thing to note. All right, let's move on to glass number 4. Okay, so far, glass number 4 and glass number 1 are actually the most similar. Very similar palates, even though the nose was not that similar. Lots of spice, kind of some youth notes showing up there. That cricket is driving me crazy. Also, you got some pepper notes, lots of pepper showing up there, and kind of some sour oak note showing up, which kind of tells me it might be young. All in all, not too bad. Not my favorite so far. Somewhere in the second to third range so far. We'll see how that goes. Let's move on to glass number 5. Okay, so one difference right away that I noticed on glass number 5 is that the mouthfeel is just so much better. It's kind of a creamy, thicker mouthfeel. It just really coats your mouth nice. It's like a nice, thick kind of caramel, brown sugar. You're getting a nice barrel presence in there, but it's not like spiky. There is some spice to it, but it's not overwhelming. Then also you're getting that nice toasted oak note. Then also there's like a nice fresh baked bread note in there as well. So really enjoyed that one. That might be our winner. So one thing we're going to do different in this Whiskey War, instead of going through them a second time on camera, I'm going to go through them off camera. That way I don't waste your time. So I'll go through these one more time and then we'll get back to the results. Okay folks, so here are the results from my right to left. We got first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and now we will reveal what those are. Now, the one that does not have anything under it, that is E. And according to my key here, E is Larceny, which actually I'm not too surprised by. That's kind of been one of my favorite go-to budget wheated bourbons. So, okay, now let's reveal what's in second place, and that is C. And C is Weller. So didn't place first, but a strong second place. Now these two I went back and forth on quite a bit. So let's go ahead and reveal what this one is, and that is D. The only thing that made Weller beat out Rebel, and these two, as I said, as I was going through them, they were very close together. So the reason that Weller Special Reserve beat Rebel 100 is because I felt like Weller had just a little more complexity, whereas Rebel was just kind of flat on the palate. There just wasn't a whole lot going on there. It was better than the other two here, obviously, but Weller just kind of edged it out. With that said, the distance here is not accurately described. It's more like this. to me, Larceny is miles ahead of our second place here. These two were fairly close, and actually, what is in fourth place, was really all three of these were close. Now, one thing that I got, so let's go ahead and reveal our fifth place here, Makers. One thing that hurt this and hurt the Woodford straight wheat whiskey in this showing is I picked up this kind of wood stain chemically note that I don't remember getting before. To be fair, the bottle is getting down there, so maybe it's opened up to the point where I'm starting to get new flavors. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes you get new flavors that aren't that great. In this case, I got kind of wood stain chemically taste. And then Makers came in last, which I kind of expected. The palate is even more flat than the Rebel Yell. I think the palate on the Woodford wheat is nicer, but the finish has this really strong chemical taste that I just ruined it for me. I wish the finish were more like the palate. Then these two, actually this probably would have moved up to second and bumped these two down. But anyway, those were our results. I think Larceny was fantastic. It was by far my favorite. And then the rest of these just were okay. In honesty, wheated bourbons are in whiskey. Wheated whiskey is not really my favorite thing. I don't think I've scored any of these all that high other than the Larceny, and that's mainly because it drinks more like a standard bourbon. So anyway, folks, those are the results. I hope you enjoyed this whiskey war. And as always, folks, don't forget to like the video if this was helpful to you, and also subscribe if you really enjoyed it. And as always, folks, just remember, you can never have too much good whiskey.